It's 3:14 in the morning and the room is not yours. As you're sitting on the floor of a bedroom you share with two other people, a cheap notebook open on your knees, writing lines that no one has asked for and no one will hear. The pen has maybe 40 pages left in it. You are 14 years old and you have just decided without telling anyone that this is the thing your entire life is going to be about. You don't know it yet, but there are 10 levels between this floor and the top of what you're chasing. Almost no one reaches the 10th. Most people never survive the second. Every level asks you for something the last one didn't, and the price goes up faster than the reward. Some of what it takes from you, you will never get back. This is your life at every single level of Rapper. Level 1, the notebook. At level 1, no one is watching, and that is the only reason you're honest. You write for 2 hours a night, sometimes 3. Not for an audience, not for approval, just to prove to yourself that your life can become something other than the thing everyone around you expects it to become. You fill one notebook every 5 weeks. You memorize verses on the walk to school. You rewrite the same 8 bars 14 times because the 7th word is wrong, and you can feel that it's wrong even if you can't explain why. Nobody teaches you this. There is no one in your building who has made this trip before you and left a map of how it was done. What you have instead is a skill you don't have a name for yet, the ability to take everything you see and compress it into language more precise than the place that produced it. The odds against you at this level are close to total. For every 100 people who fill a notebook like yours tonight, maybe 3 will ever stand in front of a microphone that records. You don't know that number. If you knew it, you might stop. You don't stop. You turn the page. Level 2, the first room. At level 2, you say the words out loud and the temperature of the room tells you the truth. The first open mic is in the back of a place that smells like spilled soda and floor cleaner. There are 11 people there, and 4 of them are performing, and 2 of those 4 are your friends. You have 90 seconds. You have practiced this 90 seconds for 6 weeks. You get through it. Nobody moves. One person nods on the second verse, a stranger, and that single nod does more for you than the 6 weeks of practice did, because it's the first evidence from someone who owes you nothing that the thing in your head can survive the trip into someone else's. You do this room every week for a year, 52 nights. You watch people who are better than you quit and people who are worse than you get louder, and you start to understand that this was never only about talent. It's about who is still standing in the room after everyone reasonable has gone home. You're still in the room. That's the whole skill at level 2, staying in the room. Level 3, the upload. At level 3, you stop performing for a room and start performing for a number. You record the first real song on borrowed equipment in a closet lined with a mattress. It takes 9 hours to get 3 minutes you can stand. You upload it at 1 a.m. because you can't wait until morning, and then you refresh the page every 4 minutes like the number is going to say something back to you. By the end of the first week, 240 plays. You know where most of them came from. You could name them. By the end of the first month, a little over 3,000, and now there are plays you can't account for, strangers, cities you've never been to, a comment in a language you don't read. This is the first time the work leaves your hands and keeps moving without you pushing it. That is the entire signal you were looking for. Not the size of the number, the fact that it grew while you were asleep. But there's a version of this level that ends careers instead of starting them, and almost everyone who fails for the exact same reason. I'll come back to it because it happens at level 6, and by then it's already too late. Level 4, the city knows. At level 4, your name arrives in a room before you do, and you are more broke than you have ever been in your life. This is the trap nobody warns you about. The city knows you now. You headline the small venue, 300 people who paid to be there sing a line back at you before you finished it, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the best feelings a human being is built to feel, and you make almost nothing. The show pays $400 and you split it 3 ways. You've spent $1,200 on recording this year and made back maybe half. You are famous inside a 12-mile radius and you cannot afford the bus that crosses it. Here's the contradiction that breaks most people at this exact spot. The recognition and the money arrive on completely different schedules. The applause is real now. The income is years away if it ever comes. And the gap between those two things is filled with people telling you you've already made it, while you count coins to eat. Level 4 is where talent stops mattering and something colder takes over. The ability to keep working at a thing that is loudly celebrated and quietly starving you. Most quit here, not because they failed, because they succeeded just enough to see how far the top still was. Level 5, the spike. At level 5, one song stops behaving like the others. You've uploaded maybe 60 tracks by now. 59 of them followed the rules, grew slowly, plateaued, faded. The 60th does not. It doubles overnight, then it doubles again. 4,000 plays becomes 90,000, becomes 400,000 in 11 days. And you are watching a graph do something graphs are not supposed to do. You didn't make this one differently. That's the part that will haunt you. You cannot reverse engineer it because there is nothing to reverse. It caught a current you didn't build and couldn't have predicted, and it carries a piece of your life to a million people who will never know your building, your floor, the notebook, the closet with the mattress. For about 72 hours, you believe the hard part is over. It is not. It has not even started, because a spike is not a career. It's a door held open by a stranger, and it closes on its own schedule, not yours. What you do in the narrow window while it's open decides everything, and waiting on the other side of that door is the first person who will offer to make all of this easier. That's level 6. And level 6 is where I need to stop and tell you something. Before we continue, my name is Calvin, and we just launched this channel for people who love history. The goal is simple: tell the stories no one really talks about, the come-ups, the collapses, the quiet decisions that changed everything, told the way they actually happened. If you want to support us and help us make better videos, consider subscribing. It's free, and it helps more than you'd think. All right, let's get back to it, because level 6 is where most of them lose everything they just built. Level 6, the offer. At level 6, someone finally opens the gate and hands you the bill on the way through. The people who ignored your calls at level 4 are calling now. You sit across a table from a man in an office who listens for 40 seconds, tells you he gets it, and slides a contract across the wood. The advance is $250,000 to a person who has never held more than $600 at once. It reads like the end of the story. It's the beginning of the most expensive lesson you'll ever be taught. Here's the loop I told you about at level 3. And the reason careers die at exactly this spot, that $250,000 is not a gift. It's a loan against everything you haven't made yet, and it's recoupable. You pay it back from your share before you see another cent. The contract wants your masters. The masters are the actual thing. The recordings that keep paying for 30 years. They're offering you $250,000 today to sign away the only asset that appreciates. And the men across the table have done this every day for 20 years. You've done it never, but you've been negotiating your whole life in rooms far less forgiving than a conference room, over stakes far higher than a check. So you do the one thing they don't expect from someone who grew up where you grew up. You read the whole contract, and you say no. Level 7, the machine. At level 7, you finally win and discover that winning is a full-time job you didn't audition for. You take a better deal, a distribution arrangement that gives you scale without surrendering the masters. The record moves 400,000 units in its first year, then the next one moves in the millions. The come-up you spent a decade on is now, from the outside, an overnight success, and the machine turns on around you. 180 tour dates in a year, 3 hours of sleep in a moving bus, a schedule managed by people you've never met, promoting a version of you refined for maximum reach. The precision you built in a notebook at 14 still lives in the music, but everything around the music now belongs to a system, and the system does not rest, and the system does not ask how you're doing. The number in your account has more digits than you once thought existed, and you eat alone after the meetings. because the people who understood the notebook aren't in these rooms, and the people in these rooms have never seen a notebook like yours. You've reached the level everyone below you is killing themselves to reach. Nobody told you it would be this quiet at the top. Level 8, the erosion. At level 8, nothing goes wrong, and that's exactly the problem. There's no scandal, no collapse, just a slow mechanical cooling that no amount of talent can stop. The new record moves 60% of what the last one did. The crowd is a year older, and so are you. A 19-year-old uploads something from a closet with a mattress, and the current that once carried you catches him instead. You are, by every measure that mattered at level 1, an enormous success, and the industry is already narrating you in the past tense. This is the level that decides who you actually are, because your leverage as a working artist was always finite. It erodes a little with every release, and it never comes back on its own. Most people fight the erosion. They chase the current, remake the old hit, take the desperate feature. They spend level 8 trying to be level 5 again. You do something colder. You count what you own, and you realize the music was never going to be the last level. It was the proof of concept. Level 9, ownership. At level 9, you stop being the product and start being the person who owns it. You apply the exact calculation you ran at level 6 in masters over advance, equity over salary, to everything now. Brand deals arrive by the dozen, and you don't take fees. You take ownership positions. A stake, not a paycheck. You sign younger artists, not to manage them, but to hold equity in recordings that will pay for 30 years after the hype is gone. You launch a company. It generates over $200 million a year and employs hundreds of people, most of whom will never know the notebook existed. You walk away from recording at the peak, publicly, deliberately, because you've understood the last secret the industry keeps. Scarcity is a business position. The artist who leaves at the top doesn't lose leverage. He compounds it. And here's what no ledger records. There is no one to call after these meetings, no peer group, no one from the building who can tell you whether you're doing it right. You made the trip so completely that you left behind everyone who could confirm you arrived. You win the whole game. You win it alone. Level 10, the ghost. At level 10, the number crosses into 10 figures, and it is the least interesting thing about you. A billion, it gets written as the headline. It is not the headline. The headline is one principle held without deviation across 30 years, ownership over access, structure over association, and the exact price of holding that line in room after room built to make you accept less. Because everything at this level costs something the accountants can't find. The 3 a.m. sessions gone. The relationships conducted in the specific silence this level requires. The names you carry, the people from the floor, from the first room, from the early years, who are not here to see what the notebook became. And right now, somewhere in a building not unlike the one where you started, there's a kid who is 17. He has no deal, no contact, no one who's made this trip before him. He's seen the number, the ventures, the ownership. He's seen what the top looks like from the only angle he's got, which is the outside. He hasn't seen the 18 months of calls that return nothing. The closet with the mattress, the rooms with no peer group. He's doing the math on whether the top is reachable. And he doesn't know yet that the math was never the hard part. He picks up the pen. They always do. That kid is going to hit a wall at level 4 that ends more careers than every label contract combined. The exact reason talent almost never survives the come up. In the next video, we're going to live his life at every level of that fall. Level 1 starts the same way for everyone. It's what you do at level 4 that decides if there's a level 5.